Hey everybody, welcome to Best of Us Investors. Today we're going to be talking about Cassava Sciences, a very controversial company that has massive potential. And we have guest Joe Springer here with us, who's going to be able to talk to us and give us another insight. Joe, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Springer. I host Investors Club Small Caps as my YouTube channel. We've been covering Cassava Sciences since January 6th when I wrote about it on Seeking Alpha. We cover a lot of small caps as well, but here to talk about the latest, greatest developments with Cassava Sciences as they are pursuing what could be a very important disease-modifying Alzheimer's drug that is currently in trials.
I'm Jacob Braun of Braun Capital, and we're going to get this discussion going. So the number one thing is, what is Cassava Sciences? Kind of like a quick overview, and then from there we can work to why are people interested? Like, what is the investment thesis one way or another?
Great. Okay. So Cassava Sciences is a clinical stage developmental biotech company focusing on Alzheimer's disease. So clinical means that the developmental stage means that they're developing it. This is not a drug that's on the market being sold. They do have a drug. They have different programs, but they have one main upfront program, which is their Alzheimer's drug. So that's in development. And then clinical, meaning it's in people. So when there's a clinical trial, that means it's in people. So they're now in both phase 2 and phase 3 of trials for Alzheimer's disease of Simufilam. Simufilam is their Alzheimer's drug. And the results have been very, very encouraging. And one thing before I forget to mention, we have a petition. There was Alzheimer's disease is always fatal, very tragic, where your loved ones become like strangers. And there's no good medicines out there. That's a little bit like ALS. There was a drug in ALS that just got approved on phase 2 data. It's very similar to what Cassava has in its phase 2 data. So Cassava has its phase 3 programs going, but it could be a couple of years until they're done. And we're trying to get this drug to market early, like that ALS drug.
Yeah, and kind of diving more into this petition before we go further, guys. So Alzheimer's is a disease of continual decline. 6 million people in the US, 30 million people worldwide, and that's expected to double in the next 20 years. So it affects a lot of people, and it's a very critical disease. And we'll talk about this more. Big time people are out against this company trying to slow down their progress or even stop it. And we're trying to I have a position, a long position, and I believe that Joe has one as well. And we have a financial interest in the company, but we also want to see this drug on the market just because of the benefits that the drug provides. So this drug has provided blown out the water for having the best ever clinical trial for data for Alzheimer's disease. And so it's got this incredible data, but it's being attacked by everyone. So they are not able to be looked at fairly or get the same access to the FDA approval processes that other big companies can. So we're trying to just spread awareness through Joe's petition. And so if you want to see them be able to just continue on in the process and maybe see their drug on to the market sooner, please consider looking at the petition. We will have it linked somewhere, or be on Joe's pages, please consider sharing it.
Yep, thank you. Well, I guess we'll put it in the description, and then we tweet it out all the time. See, we're asking you, please not just sign it, but leave a comment as well. When this ALS drug got approved, the approving body, there was a committee that's what they said. Part of the reason they approved it was the 50,000 signatures and thousands of comments of people saying, my family was affected by this. Please, we're willing to take the risk. Please get the drug out there. So please sign, please comment and share as well. We're over 1,000 signatures. We're trying to get to over 50,000. And like Jacob says, this company is under attack unfairly just for money with some of the people that can't defend themselves as the victims, and fat cats enriching themselves. There's Alzheimer's disease is enormous. It's projected to be more than $1 trillion market, literally the biggest unmet medical need in medicine. And it's everybody's going after that market, and they don't care about destroying the best treatment and destroying a small company if they can get their, for example, monoclonal antibody out there that doesn't work very well. So there's a lot of money being spent to destroy this. We're asking you to help fight back.
Yeah. So consider that, but back to the we were talking about the company. So we'll
Yes.
give you a little bit of background. Now let's go into there's basically two very strong perspectives. How about this? Joe, you can kind of do the long perspective, and then I'll dive into what the short perspective is.
Sure. The long perspective is that Alzheimer's disease is the biggest unmet medical need in the world. There's almost 7 million Americans that have the disease. It's always fatal. And the number one risk factor is age. And the baby boom generation is moving into that age group. So even though it's already almost 7 million Americans that will have this fatal disease, that already have this fatal disease, which is especially tragic, where you become a stranger to your loved one, that number is set to more than double, and this is happening around the world. And so the baby boom generation was the biggest generation we ever had, and now they're moving into the Alzheimer's generation, and it's going to be an enormous blight on the economy as well as just on humanity. And so it's the long case is that this is the best drug. So I made a quick note here. So the data so far has been shown in cognition. So they do cognition tests. So these patients go through the trials, and then, oh, look, the cognition tests are good, including in a placebo-controlled trial. Wow, cognition, but that's not all. There is behavior by some measures, but if you talk to a lot of caretakers, Alzheimer's is a caretaker's disease. You need somebody to take care of you. Behavior, people end up like biting their family members. They become aggressive and nasty sometimes. Behavior for a lot of people is worse than cognition. Well, the behavior got better for people. What else? Well, that stuff you could say, you know what, that might be easy to fake. Well, what's impossible to fake is biomarkers, an entire panel of biomarkers twice. They improved an entire panel of biomarkers, each like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 biomarkers in the phase 2b study is signed for inflammation, cognition biomarkers, all the ones associated with Alzheimer's disease. They improved them dramatically. On top of that, there's anecdotal evidence from both family members and treating doctors that are saying, we can't believe this, but it works. Like we just saw on my show last week, Dr. Rojas. We had also heard from, we had another treating doctor whose wife was attacked by the shorts, but Boris, I think we hit a treating doctor that he corroborated. And then we spoke with Dr. E, whose family members in the trials, but she spoke with a treating doctor who said he's never seen a drug work before until this one. And so there's the anecdotal evidence on top of everything else. And oh yeah, it's safe, more than 300,000 doses, and it's very safe. In the placebo-controlled trial, patients on drug had fewer serious adverse events than patients on placebo. And so, which is not surprising because there's a lot of side effects of Alzheimer's disease. A lot of problems come with it. If this drug is working, you have fewer adverse events. So it's a safe drug that looks like it's working by a lot of different measures. And so so the drug looks like it might work, or it looks very good that it would work. Well, this is the biggest unmet medical need in the world. If you charge $16,600, which is less than a third of what they wanted to charge for Biogen's drug that doesn't even work, and you got 1/4 of the patients in the US, and that's it, no international markets, no growth, and no other indications where it looks like this protein misfolding drug may treat other indications as well. But if you discount all of that and put a 4.5 times multiple on 16,600, getting 1/4 of US patients, that comes to more than a $200 billion market cap for this sub $1 billion company. So that's more than a 200x. So that's the bull case.
Yeah, and I think that was very well stated. One thing I'd love to point out is Joe did some great work and interviewed multiple people and has their testimonials of people who went through the trials, or family members of those people. And that's on his channel, and those shorts have been and clips of those have been used in promotion of the petition. I'd highly recommend checking out his channel for that. And what is your channel, real quick?
Oh, thank you. Investors Club Small Caps. Investors Club Small Caps.
But kind of coming back to this, so this is a very contentious stock. There is very strong opinions both ways, long and short. And whenever it's something so contentious, it reminds me almost of Tesla a few years ago, where it's just, people were just tagging each other before Tesla exploded. Um, there's very strong opinions both ways, and especially in a case like this, but in general, you should always know the short kind of argument. My understanding of the short argument is it really comes down to one simple thing. They believe, hey, if it's too good to be true, it isn't. And by that, they mean, so if this data is the best we've ever seen, you have all this that's worked, there's no way that happened. Well, how did a small company do that? That must be fake. And from this original thought, they've now dived into every single thing about every single person associated with the company, looking for any discrepancy to bring to light. An example that they love to bring out is basically Theranos. They were like, well, Theranos was this big fraud, everyone believed it, whatnot. But the thing with Theranos was it was a black box that they never showed to anyone, and they never did clinical trials. Cassava has done phase 2 clinical trials, has administered thousands of doses through hundreds of clinical sites. The amount of people they would have to have in on this is just unrealistic. And so basically, the shorts believe because this is too good to be true, it's made up. Or the other argument kind of is they look at math. So 99.6% of Alzheimer's drugs have failed, and there's never been a true disease altering drug. So if there's never been that, and there's been billions of dollars spent by and research by the brightest minds and by the biggest companies, all the big pharma companies have looked into this, then how does a small company in Austin who doesn't have any drugs on the market figure this out? Well, it must not. They must not have figured it out, or they must not be able to succeed. So really the short case is around disbelief. And then from there, they've gone and found whatever. But we're going to look into this. The shorts have taken many methods to attack the company, and the company has fought back. So we've looked at kind of the overview of the company. We've talked about the petition to fight the corruption, and we keep saying this different corruption. But let's talk about what the company is doing to fight back. Well, let's talk about what the corruption is. That'd be good. Joe, could you kind of give us like a high level of just the corruption before we dive into some of the things that has come to light, and some of the things the company has done to fight back against the corruption?
Yes. So first I want to say is a really good point you made about there being so many failed drugs in Alzheimer's disease. It really is an unparalleled graveyard of failed drugs. It's been less than 1% success rate, and even the drugs that succeed aren't that good. There's sort of, one way of looking at the shorts is that they don't even have to look at the science. They're just going to guess this one doesn't work either, so they're just going to short it. But then the other thing I wanted to say is that there's another idea, and this is more what I believe, is that shorts Cassava went up 30x in 18 months. So the shorts, it seemed, just believed, but this is what Cassava is saying in a lawsuit. The shorts believed they could drive the stock down. Not that they necessarily thought the stock was bad or that the science was bad. They didn't even need to have an opinion on that. They just thought they could make enough FUD to drive the stock down and make some money, and that's where the attacks come from. And so, just want to say, so then there was what you want background for the attacks at all. So go into how Cassava went up 30x in 18 months. They'd been releasing their successful trials. Their phase 2A was really, really good, but small and open label. Phase 2B was placebo controlled, got sabotaged or something like that. the results came back, and the results were incoherent even for placebo group data. Placebo group was all over the place. Their biomarkers were wildly getting better, wildly getting worse, things that don't happen in Alzheimer's disease. This was just in placebo folks. And so everyone agreed this data is not possible. This data is wrong. And so it looked like the first lab was sabotaged, and some people believe that. They went to 2 other independent labs and had it relooked at, and the data was phenomenal. And so that sabotage was possibly early attacks, but then move ahead, and then there was a high short interest all along. And then in February 2021, results of a 6-month open label, they released that data, and it's just phenomenal. The patients are not only their cognition, not only is it like with the Biogen and Lilly monoclonal antibodies, they're saying, well, they're not getting bad as quickly. It was like the best they could say, which was debatable. But here, patients were just getting significantly better. And after 6 months, so the stock shot up. More data came out of more patients at 6 months and then at 12 months. And so anyway, last year in August, the stock had gotten up to like $146. And then they released 9-month data. And at the AAIC conference, Alzheimer's conference. And then the shorts attacked, and they saturated the market and saturated channels, as Cassava would later say in a lawsuit, attacked on all fronts to saturate the narrative, basically, with what was Cassava is saying 100% nonsense claims. More than 1,000 claims Cassava had identified and said this is just a total lie, never had any validity. But they saturated all channels with this attack, created the FUD, and then shorted the stock down from more than 2 billion lost in market cap. That was never regained. Cassava remains under $1 billion in market cap, and so that was the attack. That was the attack. And then we need to remember who has the incentive to attack. Number one is hedge funds or other parties that just want to make a profit. Number 2 is competitors. They're one of these shorts that's being sued by Cassava is started a company with very similar intellectual property after he saw Cassava's, sued shorted Cassava, saying this is nonsense while copying them as best that he could. So hedge funds, competitors, then there's big pharma. Big pharma, as we said, this is a lot of money in this, and big pharma, big corporations don't mind stepping on the little guy. And the 4th one is the Alzheimer's industrial complex. There's hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on this now, and all of the everybody that's on the take does not want, they don't have the incentive to have a solution. And so, like for example, every place that has blackballed Cassava, as you and I spoke of privately, Jacob, the Alzheimer's Association, Being Patient, all these things. It seems that that there may be everybody that's on the take from the big pharma system has the incentive to shut these guys out. So, and
that statement, the blackballed statement, that's not some random statement in Cassava's lawsuit against shorts that just came out, which we'll talk about later. They explicitly stated that one of the damages from the shorting was that the Alzheimer's Association disassociated with them, wouldn't take their money, wouldn't help them with anything. And what's important to know is not just after that original attack, there's been a continual attacks throughout with different things attacking every little bit of the company. And so there was the original attack and then the continual attacks. And those 2 separate things are both separate things in the lawsuit against these shorts. So I think that's we kind of gone into the corruption against the company, all the people trying to keep them down. So let's talk about these recent events that happened where the company is starting to fight back. I think the in order, it's the hiring of Cook, the Journal of Clinical Investigation, and then the 2 lawsuits. But let's dive into the Journal of Clinical Investigation statement first, and then we can go Cook in the lawsuits.
So part of the FUD was they saturated all the channels the shorts did. So one of the things they did is they went to a lot of the journals where Cassava had published its work, or even people that worked with Cassava had published previous unrelated work even. and they just questioned everything and bullied the journals, saying you need to look at, for example, they would go to old low resolution images of Western blots and change they would admit themselves that they would change the images. They would manipulate the images in Photoshop and then say we found suspicious stuff on this low resolution image that we manipulated. So you need to say that these tests were fraudulent and wrong and things like that. And all but one eventually of the journals eventually came back and said no. They all said, okay, we'll look into this. And eventually they all came back and said no, there was no evidence here of any wrongdoing at all, none, except for one, which was the least reputable journal. And they didn't say there was any evidence. All they said was we're taking a hands-off approach. We're just taking a hands-off approach. We're not saying anything. Then the most reputable journal of all of them, the Journal of Clinical Investigation, which is a top 200 journal in the world. There's tens of thousands of journals in the world. This is a top 200 Journal of Clinical Investigation. Recently, just a few days ago, announced that it's very serious, of course, when there is fraud in these studies. What is also very serious is short and distort campaigns. And up heretofore, they had not been asking people about their conflicts of interest. People have been coming to them saying, you got to investigate this, I got to investigate this stuff, but they've never been asking about their conflict of interest. So going forward, they take this short and distort stuff very seriously, and they will be asking people about their conflicts of interest. Furthermore, they may be investigating. They may be not believing people if it looks suspicious and you say you have no conflict of interest. We may just investigate ourselves. Furthermore, we may turn you over to the Department of Justice if we think you're up to something. So they came back very strongly. This is not only is it not welcome, but we think it might be criminal, and we're going to go after the people that are going after these companies. That was huge, and that just happened. And that happened on the heels of Cassava hiring a big-time litigator who was a former U.S. attorney just a few days before that. And I think it had something to do with it.
Yeah, and one of the big things with that statement that I noticed was they explicitly said these people would contact them, say, hey, keep us up to date on everything that you're doing, so then they could have that information for their financial decisions. But then they would also say, and you must initiate this investigation within 24 hours. So they made demands and asked for privileged information, both two very important things if you're trying to have extra information for stock market. Now, yeah, we talked about the hiring of Cook, who was an SVP. So I think there's two things with him. One, his salary thing that people have talked about, and then two, just exactly who is he. So we can dive into both and just start with whichever you'd like.
He comes from a storied career, Harvard Law, but more than a 20-year career. Harvard Law is, basically the best you could possibly do. And then, oh yeah, he was a assistant U.S. attorney, which is about as good, about as the best thing you would want in a case like this. And so there's no way this guy would destroy his reputation and career going to a fraudulent company and saying, I'm here to put my reputation on this stinker. And then you bring up a great point of his compensation. He's making like 400 or 450K a year, something like that in salary, which is really good. But his options, he's getting 100,000 shares, which at like $35 is almost 10 times his salary. It's like nine times his salary.
It's about 4 million worth that he has to purchase.
Yeah,
he has the right to purchase at a price of just under 4 million total.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's a little complicated because he has the right to purchase it, but he has 10 years to purchase it. Yeah. And so that salary is really good, but for a guy like him, it's not all that good. It's that he's here, it seems, for the upside of the equity. And so that's really encouraging, especially reputation.
Explicitly, so he left a $40 billion company where he was the head of global litigation, so a massive company where he's basically the top lawyer on different things, specifically the head of global litigations and government investigations. I'm guessing because of his DOJ background. So he left this probably a very high paying job at this company. And the other thing is he could easily open up a firm or be a partner at a firm and make millions a year just from that. But he doesn't. So he has the potential to easily make at least $1 million or $2 million salary from being a partner, and he doesn't take that. Instead, he takes this $400,000 a year salary. And the second, he takes these options, where he must have money because it has $4 million to exercise, but also he's betting on the company to succeed, because that part of the salary would become worthless if the company doesn't succeed. And the only way the company succeeds is if this drug is real and not fabricated, and if it gets approved.
Yeah, brilliant, all brilliant. Absolutely. Yeah. He's the guy like that betting on this drug is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's privy to obviously tons of information we're not. Number one. Number two, he's very familiar with any lawsuits or federal things that could be going on, SEC or DOJ things. And not only is he privy to what Cassava has received, he has experience on the other side and of government investigations at this $40 billion pharmaceutical company.
And that also, we also are due for the full cohort of open label data any day now. If it was a stinker, and it is open label, so Cassava probably is probably aware of what it is. If it was a stinker, he probably wouldn't have come on board.
Yeah. So a very important hire, and it's just a very big vote of confidence from an important individual. It's an SVP at the company now. So now another lawsuit before we get into the lawsuit against the shorts was I believe 2 weeks ago now, was a case dismissal of the kind of just money seeking lawsuit against Cassava Sciences by shareholders.
Yes.
Do you want to dive into that?
So there is Cassava it's now till January 24th. So this is ongoing. There was not a huge, there was Cassava filed a motion to give us one more week, because we want to submit some more information to the court, because there's 8 lawsuits against Cassava right now, seemingly frivolous, ambulance chaser types, seemingly a part of the whole FUD campaign. But there's 4 against the company, and there's 4 against executives supposedly on behalf of the company. All of them in one manner or another have been consolidated to one. They're all being stayed until they're all either consolidated to one or are being stayed until this one consolidated one is ruled on. And so that has until January 23rd or 24th until we hear that ruling. It looks very good. The bar for this sewers to clear there is very high, it seems. And so that looks very good for all of that to be dismissed. So, and I guess maybe they wanted the extra week, perhaps related to the developments with Cook and things like that. I'm not sure, but so much happening. They just need another week, I guess, to submit more evidence.
Yeah. And well, the case dismissal that I was talking about was specifically Cassava Sciences has a very well-respected law firm defending them, that fired a filing to dismiss the case, basically asking to dismiss the case. And it's over a 100-page document. You can find it out there. And it's very in-depth and going through lots of different things. But my favorite line is basically the people who are suing Cassava are alleging that the executives at Cassava Sciences are fraudulently pumped up the stock price only to lose their personal wealth, because not only has no executive of the company has sold any insider shares during any of that, and they continued to buy every opportunity they had, including we had 4 open market purchases a month ago. So every chance insiders can get who are privy to extra information have been just buying at will. And they don't sell shares because they want to hold this on, because it's a lottery ticket for everyone. They believe, and Joe and I believe, so they're trying to hold on and don't sell. Even when the stock price was $140, they didn't sell. So that's obviously very important. So basically, they're being alleged to have done all these fraudulent things, but they didn't even make any money of it. So what would be the point to ruin their reputation without even making money?
That's a great, and that 100-page document you brought up, because there was that one, and then the lawsuit they just filed themselves. But for the one that, like you say, yeah, the part of it they're saying there, in order to prove that they're doing something wrong, you should show motivation, and they had no incentive at all. Like you're telling me they drove the stock price up just to lose money is the incentive here. So in the absence of any motive at all, the bar to prove that they intentionally did something wrong goes way higher. And oh yeah, you guys didn't make any single argument at all. They called it like a patchwork case where they made a list of wild claims.
It's like puzzle pleading.
That's
I
it.
believe was the
Puzzle
specific wording.
yeah, one list of wild claims, and then basically a separate list of supposedly justifying arguments. And you're supposed to say, you're supposed to figure it all out yourself. And they never make any one coherent argument. See, this particular action here isn't, they intentionally did wrong, and here's why. They never ever say any of that because they couldn't. There was none of that.
Yeah. And so another thing to talk about is real quick. So we have this strong insider ownership, no selling, continual buying. But you have all these lawsuits. You think that the company might be in a financial position. Well, the company has great financial position, no debt, about 180 million in cash, and enough cash to fund through their phase 3, which is at the point where the company would know whether or not the drug's going to succeed and be approved. So I just wanted to point that out before we get into the biggest events. Well, there's been a lot of big events recently, I guess, but Cassava initiating a lawsuit against the shorts for an alleged short and distort. And yeah, let's get into that.
So Mr. Barbier, the CEO, called it the mother of all short campaigns. So far, they've identified, I think, 7 individuals and 1 hedge fund, but they said that they're going, that could expand, and there's some notable absences on that list. But they're going after all of the people that did one of the things we haven't even mentioned is that the shorts, as part of their short campaign back 2 Augusts ago, did a very unethical citizens petition by a supposed whistleblower. A whistleblower is supposed to be someone on the inside that has information. This whistleblower was little more than, can you still hear me?
Yeah, your screen went like colors for some reason.
You know what? I think my battery might have run out on I'm going to keep talking here as I change the battery.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so whistleblowers are supposed to be insiders in the company. Well, this was little more than shorts, and making wild claims that were later shown to be little more than wild claims. And so this is a whistleblower supposed case.
Your camera's back on. Yeah, so but yeah, like you're saying, they misused this technology. So they misused this system for whistleblowers for their own gain. And yeah, keep going, but it's important to remember they misuse it.
So then what they do is a citizens petition. So they did unbelievably. This drug is shown to be safe. If nothing else, it's shown to be safe, safer than placebo. They petitioned the FDA to stop the trials. People that are dying of Alzheimer's disease, this drug is shown to be safe. Oh yeah, it's shown to work as well. They petitioned the FDA to stop the trials, and everything they said why was just a made up, trumped up nonsense. And fortunately, the FDA did not stop the trials. The citizen petition was rejected, but it was part of they found some Nobel laureate in UK or wherever it was to give some out of context blurb. They got all these people to say all these mean things. They flooded every channel they could with all the misinformation they could, including doing a citizen petition, including publishing in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker, Daily Mail. Everything they could. So fortunately, that the citizen petition was denied. But yes, they actually they literally tried to stop the trials. Couldn't be more unethical. So yeah, boy, I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and so then Cassava is suing the 2 people involved with that, as well as the people who are involved in the continual daily attacks on the company for different things with manipulating images and these are the people who are reaching out and pestering those journals that earlier made a statement saying, wow, this looks like a short and distort.
Yes, right. So and this everybody, so there's people like Jeffrey Pitt and David Brett, who were the doctors, old friends, and they hired Jordan Thomas, the lawyer, who's not named yet. I hope he gets named.
And that's with the citizens petition.
That was the citizen petition. So their lawsuit, Cassava's lawsuit, now names David Britt and Jeffrey Pitt for conspiring to short and distort, and then shorting and distorting. Same thing with QCM, the hedge fund.
And QCM released a report. I just like a short report where they made Cassava Sciences alleging untrue statements about the company in it.
Yeah, and it was a very childish. The QCM, that was about the most childish thing I've ever seen. Their supposed report. I've never seen anything that childish. And then a lot of the Twitter trolls, Adrian and Jesse, same thing, going short, conspiring to do short and distort, and then doing the short and distort.
And this is kind of like basically it's defamation. Cassava is alleging, they're saying untrue things, and then from those things also profiting.
Yes.
Yeah, so Cassava's fighting back. These people have been attacking. They're fighting back and saying they're alleging, they're arguing that they shorted the company and distorted the image. Yes. And they allege and they show things that have happened to them. For example, they've missed out on an NIH grant, and all the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations have disassociated and won't help them. So this is slowing down the process, which is why the petition is created to help speed back that process to fight back. But and another important thing is there's precedent of this. Is very rare to come for companies to do. First of all, one, because it's expensive. Two, it's very they have to be very defamatory, which allegedly they have been. But one example of this happening and the company winning, really the only other one I've seen of a company suing shorts, it happens, but it's very rare, is Farmland Partners. Do you want to talk about that case?
Off the top of my head, I remember the Farmland Partners.
So I can talk about it real quick. So basically, someone released a short report with untrue statements, and they made money off of it. And so Farmland Partners sued them, and they had to pay back 6 times what they made off the short and alleged distort. And then their price went back and even proceeded to go higher than what they're originally at. So there is precedent for people suing shorters.
Yeah.
And the bigger thing is the company is fighting back and trying to change the tide in their favor, which with a lot of very exciting events they seem to have recently. So we've kind of talked on multiple topics. Let's talk about what investors have to look forward to. I think the biggest one in this topic is the 200 patient. So really, we have a few catalysts, and Joe, you can talk about them more specific after I mention them. So we have the 200 patient data at 12 months open label extension. So it's 200 people we know they've taken the drug as open label at 12 months. We have the cognition data for that. Right now we have 100 of those, and with that, we'll also have around that same time 25 biomarkers of people at 12 months. We only have 6 months for 25 people, and both of those should be December of this year. But that's top line for the cognition data. The full data report, it's my understanding, it will be Q1 of 2023. And then summer of 2023, we'll have a cognitive maintenance study, which is basically people will go on the drug for a year, open label, half go off, half stay on. And then we compare the results after 6 months of those people. It's like a withdrawal study. And then summer of 2024, we should be completed with both phase 3 trials if enrollment finishes on time. So that's kind of like the high level catalysts. Joe, do you have any comments or any other things I missed with like things to look forward to about this company?
I guess the City University of New York doing their investigation, and we should, according to Cassava, we should be hearing from them. So I guess that's the only one I think you didn't mention.
Okay. And then last thing, how can people find you? And do you have any last thoughts or things you want to touch on?
You can find me at Joe Springer on Twitter. Come to the YouTube channel, please. Investors Club Small Caps. Every day at 11 o'clock Eastern time, we do a show, and trying to make the show better and better. And we do it live. We talk to everybody that is in the chat there. So come and join us. And that's it. Yeah, Investors Club Small Caps and at Joe Springer.
Yeah, and definitely, guys, make sure to check out that petition. I'll be passing along to best of us. With that, thank you so much for watching. I hope this gave you some more information. We'll continue to be on it. If you want to follow my work, I'm on Twitter at real Jacob Braun. Thank you. Have a good day, and best of luck investing.